Thank you, Janet. First of all, I have two apologies to make. The first one is on the program, Bill Easton, a director in our company, Ernst & Young, was supposed to be here. So instead you have myself. I think with the energy bill coming out yesterday and a few other announcements this week, we had to shuffle around our priorities and responsibilities. And the second apology is that technology for once didn't work. So I don't have slides, so I could try to say there's an innovative way to capture and maintain your attention by actually not using the slides, but it's simply because I couldn't manage to load them on the computer. So I'll try to see whether I can manage to keep you entertained for the next 10 minutes. The topic I'm going to talk about is the non-domestic Green Deal, which actually I feel a little bit under pressure, because normally every time there is an event talking about the Green Deal, we always open with the domestic Green Deal, which is the Green Deal everybody's talking about and everybody is hearing about. And then the non-domestic is relegated to the last session when everybody is not around, they've already left, or they are getting a coffee. So the non-domestic Green Deal generally is thought of as the poor cousin or the poor relation of the Green Deal. And in fact, if you looked at the documents produced last year, particularly the impact assessment that was published in December last year, I think probably 95% of the impact assessment talks about the domestic Green Deal, and only 5%, so about like 3 or 4 pages, talk about the non-domestic Green Deal. And last year we published a report. I don't have slides, but I have a copy here of the report about the non-domestic Green Deal, and we called it Making Energy Efficiency Your Business. Why do we focus on non-domestic Green Deal? The first reason was nobody talks about it, or if they talk about it, again, nobody hears about it. So we wanted actually to take a different perspective around the Green Deal and actually looking about what it means for businesses. Andy will talk a little bit later about actually what the Green Deal is and some of the key principles. So I will just stay relatively general about why a Green Deal is actually important for businesses, for non-domestic consumers, but particularly for SMEs. So the non-domestic Green Deal for SMEs, why it is important? Well, it's important for 2 reasons for SMEs. One is some of the SMEs, the small businesses, might actually become Green Deal providers. So they may actually come and develop Green Deals for customers in the domestic side, but they are actually small businesses, they offer a Green Deal. So some of the large utilities might offer, or the large energy suppliers might offer Green Deal packages, but small businesses might offer it too. The second element, and is the element we focused on in our report last year, is that because Green Deal can be offered to non-domestic businesses. So if I'm a small or medium-sized business, I could get a Green Deal provider coming to my business, my office, and say, I want to offer you a Green Deal. And why it is important, even if nobody talks too much about it, SMEs actually are responsible for more than 50% of the gross value added in the UK. So small businesses are actually the engine of the UK economy, because there are more than 4 million of them, and they provide more than half of the output of the UK. So very important. And emissions from commercial properties and non-domestic properties actually account for 20% of the UK emissions. So far, until the Green Deal for non-domestic businesses was introduced, or is about to be introduced, there are not many policies actually that target the non-domestic small and medium-sized sector. So you have 20% of emissions, half of the economy, and not many actually policies. All the policy, the UETS or even the CRC, they all focus on relatively larger energy users and larger businesses, not the small one. Therefore, important sector. There was a missed opportunity. Now the government is dealing with it, or at least is trying to deal with it. So there is big potential there, but is actually the non-domestic Green Deal a good policy to target this big potential? And I think the key element is there are quite a lot of challenges. And the main challenge is the diversity of it. There are diversity in terms of the property sizes on the domestic side. You might have a flat, an apartment, 2-bedroom house, 3-bedroom house, 4-bedroom house, semi-detached, terrace, detached, so many different properties. But at the end of the day, the entities, one final consumers, is domestic. On a non-domestic side, not only you have different buildings, but you have different size of businesses. Some of them are simply one person. It might be your corner shop, Or it might be a small kind of company that employs 20, 25 people, that has a warehouse, and therefore has a completely different type of building. It might require completely different type of energy efficiency measure to be installed in the property. And if a one-size-fits-all policy might actually struggle with the domestic side, it struggle even more with the non-domestic side. So when you're trying to address such a varied a number of customers, having a policy that has one type of policy, it might be quite difficult. So when we looked at the implementation challenge, we said we need to address the diversity of the businesses. The second element that you need to address is the materiality. How important is the Green Deal to my business? How important are energy costs to my business? Some companies might actually find that the energy cost is about 10-15% of the total cost, and therefore a reduction in energy costs of about 10-20% might still be quite important. But even then, you're talking about 2 or 3% savings on my total cost. They go straight to the bottom line, so they are important, but this is for the energy-intensive small and medium businesses. If my business doesn't use that much energy, is it that important to me? Is that material? I have to think to many different issues, particularly in this difficult economic climate, and that are much higher in my priority list. So is energy cost, is it really that important? So do I have the time to spend looking at different green deals, different offers, and actually then follow the implementation, and enabling the Green Deal assessor to come to my property, check what measure can be installed, deciding on the measures, following through the actual installation and the implementation. So is it material to my business? For the vast majority of business, probably not. And the last one is about the practical challenges. How much is it going to disrupt my business? If I need to shut down my business, let's say a corner shop, for a couple of days to allow the installers to come in and install the property, how much revenue I'm going to lose? What is the disruption to my business for those days or even weeks that I actually might need to let engineers and installers coming in? So these are the three very important challenges that we recognize when looking at the non-domestic Green Deal. We ran some surveys as well, and we discovered that actually only about between 15 and 20% of the small business are actually even heard or are considering the Green Deal. All of the others, they're not. But at the same time, they say that if they can actually get support and help in actually assessing the Green Deal, and they get support throughout the process and also after the Green Deal has been installed and actually managing their energy, they might actually that increase their likelihood to consider the Green Deal to about 35-40% of the small businesses interviewed. So one of the suggestions that we put forward in our report is that the Green Deal and the domestic side cannot come alone. It has to become as a part, almost as a package. In a sense, it might be that it has to be followed through with either an energy management offer or has to actually be included into other offers as well. If, for example, if I can attach the Green Deal, some sort of tax incentives, mainly actually to get the attention of the small business so they can actually recognize the value of the Green Deal. The other element is about flexibility again, and linked to the issue around the diversity of the SMEs. Again, one size fits all is unlikely to work. So then whenever I introduce a policy such as the non-domestic Green Deal, I need to allow for a flexibility of different offers, for the flexibility of different implementation plans. And the other element is actually to make that a priority for businesses. How do you do that? Again, you could include it into a bundle of offers, but also you need to start actually educate some of the small businesses to actually what the Green Deal might actually entail to them and what it means for them. Energy costs might not be a big part of their cost now, but they might be more in the future. Energy costs are likely to increase in the future by 10, 15, 20%, depending on different estimates. So while it might not be a priority for them now, is it going to be a priority for them in 2, 3, 5 years' time? How do we actually get that message across? And again, it might come down to some marketing as well, but also some information awareness campaign the government might actually launch at the same time the Green Deal is launched. One of the last elements is actually about making a successful policy, no U-turns. We've seen the experience with the solar PV, where actually suddenly, and this is not just in the UK, just in case we worry about the UK policy being all over the place, it happened in Spain, in Italy, and it is likely to happen in Germany as well, where some of the subsidies were given for solar PV are suddenly being cut back. So if you have a policy for a domestic Green Deal, though it applies to the domestic side as well, is not start with a particular policy and then 12, 18 months down the line see that it's not working as I expected. Therefore, I suddenly switch and change or completely radically introduce new elements of the policy. That is not going to help. So it is therefore better actually to start slow and make sure that I build confidence and trust and experience in the small business sector, for the suppliers, but also for the finance community in terms of actually providing the finance for the Green Deal, then actually start trying to introduce and launch it in 2012 or 2013 with a big expectation, trying to kind of create a new big market, and then actually suddenly 18 months down the line realize that actually the market is not there. So U-turn is not good when I have to deal with business, because business need to prepare, need to plan, and they need to take new policies into account when they estimate their future revenues and future market. From that perspective, therefore, what we suggested was actually that a slower policy that aims, for example, to build confidence, trust, might be a better way to launch a non-domestic Green Deal rather than starting at the same time as a domestic Green Deal. And it seems that, from that perspective, recent rumors or announcement that the non-domestic Green Deal might be delayed and will not be launched at the same time as the domestic Green Deal in October this year will follow along the lines that we were suggesting, also some of the industry were suggesting in the future. And from that perspective, it might actually mean that the market might not be as big as expected in the beginning. We estimated that the market for non-domestic Green Deal could be by 2020 in the range of between 500 and 800 million per annum, so quite a sizable market, and nowhere near the size of what the domestic Green Deal will be, which is counted in the billions, but still is a sizable market, very important market. If you do the slow approach, you might actually achieve that. If you try to create a market in the hundreds of millions straight away, you might realize that when you're in 2020, that market is pretty much dead, and therefore you missed out on a big opportunity, which is good not only for the small businesses and as a customers in terms of helping achieve efficiency, but also small businesses as providers in terms of actually creating value for them. I think I'll leave it that, and I'm more than happy to get questions later on if you have any more questions for me. Thank you.